Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jenny and today I'm going to be doing a palette showdown between the Anastasia of Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette and the new Rosé in the Air Wet n Wild palette. As you can see, there are a ton of similarities within these palettes and I really just wanted to see how they wear. I really just wanted to see how they compare to each other. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to do one eye with the Wet n Wild and one eye with the Anastasia of Beverly Hills. My eyelids are already primed with the Smashbox primer. I wanted to use a primer that I know will work with eyeshadows and stuff. So let's go ahead and start the look. My right eye is going to be my Anastasia eye and my left eye is going to be the Wet n Wild eye. So to start, I'm going to take the shade Tempera and just put this all over my lid and kind of up into the crease as well. And I'll be using my color switch to clean up the brushes. Going into Wet n Wild palette, I'm going to go into this light shade. They're all numbered and the only two that have names are these two transition shades, so I'm just going to have to point to these. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there is some fallout from the Anastasia side. That's why I did not put any foundation or anything on yet. Going into the shade Bon Fresco, I'm going to put this up into the crease and slightly into the outer V. And with the Wet n Wild palette, I'm going to go into the Bon Fresco counterpart. Yeah, just comparing, this one's a lot lighter than Bon Fresco is. Yeah, so this Bon Fresco type shade is taking a lot of building to get to the color payoff of Bon Fresco. Going into the shade Warm Taupe, whatever, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Going into this top transition shade in the Wet n Wild palette, I'm going to do the same thing. So far it's not looking much different. I do think this one has a slightly more warm undertone than the Modern Renaissance as of now, but once we start adding those reds and stuff, I think it'll kind of start to even out. Going in with Raw Sienna, I'm going to take that into the crease and the outer V. Taking this transition shade from the Wet n Wild palette, I'm going to go in with the same thing. Going into the shade Real Gar, that's a nice warm orange. I'm going to take Real Gar and put it into that outer V and into the crease. That's where most of these shadows are going to go actually, but going into this nice warm orange shade, doing the same thing. Oh my, that has some pigment to it that I was not expecting. Oh gosh, oh no, that's a lot of orange. I'm going to take just a little bit more Real Gar and put it on this side since that side attacked me with orange. Going into the shade Love Letter, I'm going to take that in the same exact spots but with a smaller brush just to make it a little more precise. Going into the Love Letter counterpart and doing the same thing. Going into the shade Red Ochre, I'm just going to put this one in the outer V, and then going into this red one. Gonna take Cypress Umber and put that on the very, very, very outer corner over here. Going in with a flat definer, I'm going to take Primavera and put it on the inner half of my lids. Although I really like how these look just matte. So now going into the gold shade, doing the same. So this one is obviously brighter, so I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. Just keep adding, I guess. I applied it with my finger, and so now it's a little brighter. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my liner and everything else off camera, and I'm gonna do my lower lash line off camera too, but basically what I did to the top I'm gonna do to the bottom, but keep those darker shades on the outer half of the eyelid. So I'm gonna finish my face, and I'll be right back. So here is a close-up of what the eyeshadow looks like finished. I think it looks really pretty, and I don't think I would know which one was which if no one told me. I think they both look really nice. So now that I have completed the eye look, I'm going to go throughout my day. I do have to work this morning, and then I'm going to go wrap presents with my sister this evening, and I don't know how long I'm going to be wearing this makeup, so it'll be really interesting to see which eye wears better. My guess is it's going to be the Anastasia Beverly Hills, but Wet n Wild has blown me out of the water before, so we will see how these pan out. It'll be really exciting, so I will see you at the end of the day. Okay guys, so it is now, what time is it? It is now almost 9 p.m. and I have had this makeup on for about 13 hours. I started putting it on around like 6 o'clock this morning and finished around like 7-ish. 7:30 maybe, I don't know. So it's been on for about 12 hours, so now I'm going to zoom you in so you can see what they look like up close. So here is what the eyes look like up close after about 12 to 13 hours. Remember, this one is the Anastasia and this one is the Wet n Wild. So now that you have seen the close-up, I'm going to go ahead and give you my thoughts. So overall, this Wet n Wild palette is an awesome dupe. Now, looking at it close up, this one looks slightly less worn than this one, but just slightly. The colors are almost identical, so I asked a couple people, they had no idea that I was even wearing two different eyeshadows. They just assumed that it would be the same one. So it wears nicely. This may have like the tiniest bit of creasing, but I really have to look at it, and it might just be that shimmer shade on top of that matte. Overall, the Anastasia side is just like a half a hair better. So now just to compare them, in the Anastasia palette you do get 14 shades, while in the Wet n Wild one you only get 10. So you do get 4 more shades in the Anastasia palette, but you also get a brush in the Anastasia palette. But this is $42, and this is $4.99. So if you don't have this palette and you don't want to spend $42 on it, this is like an excellent, absolutely excellent dupe. But if you already have the Modern Renaissance palette, the Wet n Wild palette is not necessary because you have these colors plus some. But the Wet n Wild palette is an excellent, excellent alternative if you're on a budget, you don't want to spend that much, you can't get it on sale, yada yada, whatever. This is very, very, very nice. The quality is great, the pigmentation is great, the wear time is excellent. I just think with the Anastasia, you get that tinge better quality because it is Anastasia of Beverly Hills. Okay, so here are the palettes next to each other. You can see there are lots and lots of similarities within these palettes. So instead of doing live swatches, because that'll take me a few minutes, I'm going to insert a picture of swatches that I did earlier in the week up right here so you can see them. So in this palette there are only the 4 shadows that haven't been duped, and those 4 shadows are Golden Ochre, Vermeer, Burnt Orange, and the Venetian Red, which the Venetian Red is very similar to Love Letter, so it could still technically be considered in this palette. But so those are the only 4 that weren't duped. The rest of them are almost identical, as you can tell from the swatches that I put here. The only true difference between them is there's like a slight difference in pigmentation in the Wet n Wild side. When you are blending, you do have to put on a little bit more product, but I think for $4.99, this palette is excellent, and if you do not already have this palette, you should definitely get this one for sure. I mean, you really can't tell the difference in person, and I'm sure you can't on camera either. This eye may be teeny tiny bit more, like less faded, I guess is what I'm trying to say, but overall, excellent dupe, excellent quality. If you do not have the Modern Renaissance, get this palette. I highly recommend it. It's beautiful. So that's all that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and if you would like to subscribe, please feel free, and I'll see you next time. Bye.